Alrighty, we are back with Insider Betting. We're going to be discussing UFC Vegas 95. We're back to the Apex. As always, we're not going to talk about the prelims because you don't watch them. I don't watch them. Jesse might watch them. But anyway, Jesse, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Doing great. I'm a prelim casual right here.
Yeah, there we go.
This card is it's one of the cards of all time, Adam. So let's talk about it.
Oh man, yeah, we got a UFC debut on the main card this week, so it's an interesting one to say the least. Let's start with the first fight of the main card here. Perfect. We got Toshiomi Kazama versus, I'm gonna call him Shara. I'm just gonna go with that. I think that's
pretty
fair.
safe.
Yeah, that's what we do here.
I think we call him Grigoriou. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Grigoriou.
Grigoriou.
His last name. Yeah.
Nice. So Kazama is fighting to stay in the UFC here, in my opinion. He has had 3 fights in the UFC. He's 1-2 in the UFC. He's on back-to-back losses, most recently to Garrett Armfield. From what I've seen, he's a grapple-first guy, although Grigoriou, as you can see by the stats, is pretty decent when it comes to his takedown defense and getting a few takedowns during fights. So definitely don't take that away from him. But where Grigoriou really excels is his just power, just raw power, dude. He absorbs a ton of strikes per minute. He absorbs 5.56 strikes per minute, but he only lands 2.13. The 2 punches he lands per minute are powerful. Out of his 8 wins, 6 of them are by knockout. So he's got that knockout power, and I think that's what he's going to be trying to do in this fight. This fight is really for both of these guys to kind of set up on the right foot. Grigoriou lost his debut. Kazama is 1-2 in the UFC. It's really just it sucks. It's a main card fight for 2 guys that are off to a bad start but have potential, and the UFC just wants to see which one to keep, I think.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Grigoriou's card here, or his SureDog page. I'm not so certain that he's not also fighting for his UFC career. I mean, he's only 8-4. He had a good performance on Contender Series, which got him the contract, and then loses unanimous decision. There's no guarantee for him either. I got to be honest here. And he's probably got to do something special in this fight to really, like you said, get off on the right foot, because just because you win on the Contender Series and you get a UFC contract does not mean that you're guaranteed like 4 or 5 fights. The UFC can essentially cut you anytime. So I do think they're kind of both fighting for their careers a little bit here.
Yeah.
Just by looking at it, I would lean Grigoriou just because it kind of feels to me like he's got a lot more on the line, a lot more to prove. And like you said, it kind of feels like Toshiomi might be on the way out.
I agree. I think the main thing here is that Toshiomi he might try to grapple. I don't think he's got the same power that Grigoriou has. Yeah. And like 100% takedown defense. Obviously, that's up of like 1 or 2 fights in the UFC, so that doesn't mean too much. But people have tried against him and have failed, right? So I think that if he can just control the takedowns and just try to land his like power shots, at the very least, he can go to decision and possibly win, or we can see a knockout in this fight.
Yeah, Grigoriou's never been submitted, by the way, and that's sort of Kazama's calling card. Half of his wins are by submission. Grigoriou's never been. 6 of his 8 wins are by knockout for Grigoriou. So I'd consider betting the knockout here, but I'm only saying that because like he kind of feels like he needs to knock him out to keep it going. So. Yeah, this is a tough one, man. This is big for both of these guys.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Mm-hmm. But on to the next fight, we got Yana Santos versus Chelsea Chandler. Yana Santos is on a 3-fight losing streak. She's lost to Carol Rosa, she's lost to Holly Holm, she's lost to Irene Aldana. While Chelsea's coming off of a win, she beat Josiane Nunes. She's 2-1 in the UFC. She's again, kind of like Toshiomi and Grigoriou there. she's working her way up in the UFC, you know, but she's off to a hotter start than those other two guys. Yana Santos has been in the UFC a whole lot longer. You'd hope her experience can help her get the win, but this feels like it's one of those fights where the UFC is setting up kind of like the newer fighter versus a little bit more of the vet, and they're hoping that the newer fighter wins to set them off onto a strong foot. So simply because of that, she's plus 124 favorite or underdog, I will say, for Chelsea Chandler, but I am leaning towards Chelsea. She's got more to gain by winning, I think. And I think that's going to make her be a little bit more aggressive. It's going to help her win a few rounds. And I think it's going to go to decision, and she's going to win by decision.
Yeah, this feels like bet decision the whole way, if I'm being honest. And Chelsea, for those who don't remember, Chelsea Chandler is one of the funniest memes in MMA history, in my opinion. On the Holly Holm versus Myro Buenasilva card, there's a meme. There's a moment where Chelsea Chandler starts running away from her opponent. I forget who she was fighting. It was Norma Dumont. She starts running. She gets hit and she starts running away from her and like running towards the cage. And so there's literally a shot of just Chelsea Chandler like running in the opposite direction of her opponent in the middle of the octagon, just running, like full on sprinting away. And it became a very popular meme.
We'll have to
That
pop
should
that
tell
up.
that should tell you all you need to know about her fight style. She's very much avoiding danger, get in, get out. She's not looking to do any crazy exchanges. Decision all the way, however you bet it. And I like Chelsea with the odds, plus 124. Yeah, I'm looking at Yana Santos. Nothing too impressive here. She does have a win over Caitlin Vieira and Julia Stolyarenko. But she's lost to Aspen Ladd, Ariane Aldana, Holly Holm, Cara Rosa. So she has lost to high-level people. We do have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, exactly. She has lots of high level people. She is still the ranked 12th in the division, right? So you got to give some respect there. It's just so tough betting on a fighter who's on a 3-fight losing streak, honestly.
Yeah.
So
no, the momentum favors Chandler. You're right.
Of course. All right.
But yeah, did you see the meme?
Next fight here? No, I haven't. I need to pull it up.
Yeah. Anyways.
You have to pop it up on screen.
Oh yeah, okay.
When we post it. But anyway, Chris Gutierrez versus Quang Lee. This is a pretty crazy one. Quang Lee is making his UFC debut. I was actually on his Instagram and he had a graphic and it was like big announcement going to Dana White's Contender Series. And then like 3 posts later, it's like massive announcement making my UFC debut. So for those who don't know, what was happening is Quang Lee was supposed to make his Contender Series debut next month. So he's coming in short notice against Chris Gutierrez, who was supposed to fight. Who was it? I forget who. Javid Basharat.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so he was supposed to fight Basharat there. He dropped out. Quang Lee is coming in on short notice. I could not find a picture of this guy to put on the right side of the screen. This is the best I could find. So that's what Quang Lee looks like. You can see his stats are all zeros because he is never fought in the UFC, but he is 8-0. Chris Gutierrez is coming off of a loss to Song Yadong. He's a minus 535 favorite. I did see him open as a minus 300 favorite though. So you can see that the odds makers are getting more and more comfortable with Chris Gutierrez winning this one. I think they're 100% right. I think Gutierrez is probably going to run away with this one. He's got 9 knockouts, 10 decision wins. This guy's experienced. He's fought some good guys for Chris Gutierrez. So I just don't see how a guy making his debut beats him, but might be worth a little sprinkle in there, you know?
Yeah, I would consider a bet on Gutierrez by decision, only because half of his wins are finishes, the other half are decisions. And the same kind of goes for Quang Lee. Half of his wins are 5 finishes out of 8 wins. So it favors a decision. The odds favor a decision here. I don't actually have what they are, but that's what I would bet. Chris Gutierrez is probably just going to beat him up with the leg kicks the whole time, to be honest, because that's what he's really good at. He has really good kicks. He has knockout power. He has a brutal knockout of Frankie Edgar. There might be some high value underdog here for Quang Lee, just as a little sprinkle, because like you said, there's so little known about him that it could be difficult for Gutierrez to find his footing in the early rounds against a guy that there's not much video on, not much research on. But I would lean Gutierrez decision, and I'm curious what that is. So
It actually
Gutierrez,
does not exist. You can only
it
bet
doesn't
money
exist.
line on this. They
Well,
don't know enough. They're not willing to put those
and I'm
odds
not
out
touching
there.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
throw Gutierrez in a parlay. I'm not touching it.
Yeah, that's about all you can do.
Yeah.
But anyway, Danny Barlow versus Nikolay.
Yeah.
I believe,
Veretennikov.
yeah. Nikolay is also making his UFC debut. Hence the black and white image that we have on him. This is actually the official image he has on the
Wow,
UFC.com
two
site.
was it
So,
was the last fight on the main card too?
yeah.
So we
So
got
it's
two guys
two.
making UFC debuts on the main card.
Correct. This is the feature fight of the main card too, which is pretty
Oh my
crazy.
god. Yeah. Well,
Um,
Barlow's a good name.
Yeah, Barlow, good name. People, he's the hype train to go on right now. Keep in mind, this is only his second fight in the UFC, so he's 1-0 right now in the UFC. He's 8-0 overall, with 5 of those being knockouts. I think his first win in the UFC, correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been by decision. No, it was by TKO. I take that back. So it was against Josh Quinlan by
Yep.
TKO, UFC 298. People are hyped about this guy. He lands an insane 8.8 strikes per minute. I'm assuming a lot of those are leg kicks as well. I haven't actually personally seen him fight, but this is going to be a striker versus striker matchup. You got one guy who's high volume, while the other guy is in Nikolay. He's got high power from what I've seen a little bit about him. Again, not much to separate these two guys on paper, but they're just so new that it's hard to tell. Plus 300 for Nikolay, while Danny Barlow is minus 380. I think that's part of him being on that hype train where people are just like super excited about him and have high hopes for him. It's hard to like, there's nothing to bet on, like a guy's 3-1 favorites. You're not getting the value is not there to bet on him. I'm still going to go with Danny Barlow, but it's just, I'm going to keep my money in my pocket this time around. But I do have a prop bet on this one that I'm going to share at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it's tough because I hate betting on these fights where you just don't know the guy that he's going up against. But I mean, when you look at a guy who's, let's see, 12-4, making his UFC debut, it means he's lost 4 fights in crappy promotions. It is worth pointing out here. Started his career 1-4. This is Veretennikov. Started his career 1-4, dating back to 2014. In the Russian MMA Union, New Horizons Grand Final. So this guy goes way back here. That was when he was 24 years old. Since then, he is 11-1.
Yeah.
And that's
his one loss
against,
was in the Contender Series.
Yeah, and that's against better competition, against Michael Morales, who is like potentially a future champion, by the way. So, and he's doing that in pretty good organizations in LFA and Fury FC. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that this guy has figured some things out. The problem is that he's 34. Barlow's obviously younger. He's there's more hype behind him. I would consider a sprinkle on Nikolay just because, like I said on the last one, you just don't know. And he seems to have figured some things out, and he's got power. The one-punch knockout power, all you got to do is land one. We haven't really seen Barlow's chin get tested yet. That's a big question. What can his chin take? I still like Barlow, and by KO, because it feels like this fight's going to be a KO, if I'm being honest. Both these guys are strikers. They both are high knockout rates. Barlow by knockout is a plus 110. So Vegas agrees with me. That might be the way I bet it if I do. Nice. But otherwise, a sprinkle might be Veretennikov by KO at plus 650. It's worth a thought.
Nice. Yeah. No, I'll take that. Yeah, going on to the main event. But before we do, Insider Betting will be right back. But first, Inside Fighting has officially partnered up with DraftKings. If you're a new DraftKings customer, all you have to do is place a $5 bet and you will receive $150 in bonus bets. So you can use on literally whatever you want. Now, all you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use code Inside Fighting to receive your promo. Cool. And we're back, baby. Let's do it. Main event, or co-main event, sorry, I should say. We got Damon Jackson versus Chepe Mariscal. or Mariscal. Sorry.
Mariscal, yeah.
Yeah. Minus 230 versus a plus 190 underdog here. It's an interesting one. Damon Jackson's coming off a win with Alexander Hernandez. Chepe is on a 6-fight win streak. He's coming off of wins with Morgan Charrier, Jack Jenkins, Trevor Peake. Hasn't really fought anyone too big, but he's 3-0 in the UFC, so you got to give him action, or you got to give him credit where it's due. Damon Jackson's got 15 submissions out of his 23 wins, which is very, very impressive. This is another one of those fights where it feels like, they're setting up a bit of a newer fighter versus the vet. And I'm leaning personally towards the newer fighter, but what are your thoughts on this fight?
Well, I was looking immediately to see how many times Mariscal has been submitted. And as far as I can see, he has never been submitted. So I have to imagine he has some good takedown defense. Yeah, he has good takedown defense, 66%.
What I will say is that I believe that Chepe is a BJJ champ, and I think he did collegiate wrestling as well. So he does have good defense. Damon might be able to out-grapple him, but Chepe will be able to kind of keep him intact there with his wrestling, I think.
Yeah, so the issue I'm having here, so obviously, like you said, Jackson's a submission threat. I'm starting to wonder maybe if Jackson's chin is gone. He took a brutal knockout against Danny Ige like over a year ago.
Yeah.
He hasn't been knocked out since, but he just hasn't looked the same since. He's been very much like slowed down by it, averse to taking damage, very scared of taking damage. Very much like he fights. I don't want to say scared because it's disrespectful, but definitely fights on the outside and is trying to avoid, internal, like phone booth fighting. He's really trying to avoid it. And that's not to say that Chepe has incredible knockout power. Only half of his wins, less than half of his wins are by knockout. But I just don't think that Jackson has the chin anymore where he's willing to sort of get in there where you can really utilize your takedowns effectively, where you can really start utilizing your grappling effectively. I think it favors Mariscal because I'm looking for like value here. So I would consider Mariscal by KO or decision, which would be, oh, see, they're fucking minus 200. They're already on it. They're already on it. Yeah, I mean, by KO would be a plus 225. By decision would be a plus 165. Flip a coin, take one of those, I think is what I would do. I like Mariscal, if I'm being honest. I would take that.
I do too. I again, just you have like the experience versus the rookie, even though the rookie is 31 in this case. But I think it's just going to be too fresh.
I think Jackson's chin is close to gone.
Exactly. Yeah, he's fresh, right? Like he hasn't been hit as many times as Jackson has. So that's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Anyways, main event. This is a rematch per se. This is their second time fighting against each other. We got Marcin Tybura versus Serghei Spivac. Last time they fought, I think it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Do you remember when they fought last?
Tybura and Spivac?
Yeah.
I have his page open right here. Hold on. It's
2020.
Yeah.
So 4 years ago. Tybura came in with the win, actually. In that first go. Tybura is coming off of a win versus Tai Tuivasa, while Spivac is coming off of a loss to Cyril Gane, but he did beat Derek Lewis the fight before that. Both of their most recent wins, I believe, came by submission. I rewatched the Tai Tuivasa and Tybura fight yesterday, and so it's interesting because a lot of people, like when I remember when I watched it live, I was like, damn, Tybura just mauled this guy.
No, he took shots in that one.
He took some shots. Yeah. So when I rewatched it, I saw that Tuivasa outstroked him. He hit him hard really early.
Yeah.
And then basically what happened was Tybura kind of got him up against the cage, Tuivasa stood up for a little bit. He also he had him in a chokehold there, and I was probably on the ground for a minute, just breathing, trying not to get choked out, and eventually was just
Yeah.
passed.
He gassed pretty hard, and he just get grappling. It's just not there. He just doesn't have grappling, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Spivak lost to one of the best grapplers in the division, to Cyril Gahn. So respectable there as well. A lot of people I saw were saying that, they're fighting. This is their second time fighting. Neither fighter has like drastically improved or drastically like gone worse. It seems like they've both kind of stayed on the same level. And so I saw a lot of people leaning towards Tybura. In my opinion, Tybura is just getting older. Serghei Spivac is also getting older at the exact same rate, but he's only 29 years old versus 38. I think he has gone better. He's got a few really solid wins. He was on a 3-fight win streak there before losing. Well, sorry, he was on a 3-fight win streak off of a loss to Tom Aspinall. And then again, recently he lost to Gahn. So 2 very credible losses. Personally, I think Spivak's grappling has gotten a little better, even though he just lost to one of the top grapplers in the heavyweight division, being Gahn. And I think he's going to be able to utilize that versus Tybura. And that's why I'm leaning towards Spivac getting the win here.
Yeah. So about Gahn's mainly Gahn's grappling, I think, is you might be overhyping his grappling a little bit. Gahn's more of a striker, and he beat the brakes off of Spivac. Like, you just go back and watch it. He beat the absolute crap out of him. It was
Fair.
he just brutalized him. Like I think it was Paris. I forget where they fought. It might have been.
I think so, actually. I'll look it up while you keep going there.
So here's the thing about this fight is that these are two guys that they're not traditional heavyweights, because they both implement a lot of grappling into their game. And I could see this fight being like sort of situation where like the grappling's a little neutralized and they have to stand up. And because neither of these guys have great stand up, this fight could go a little longer than we might expect. I would consider, I know that like it's not typical for heavyweight fights, but I would consider Spivac by decision, because just for that reason alone, by decision it would be a plus 220, no, plus 180. So they're kind of on it with me there. It's a tough fight to call because it is kind of a coin flip fight. And
totally a coin flip fight.
Yeah. But I think that Spivac does enough on the feet to and can utilize his like grappling enough to pull out a decision. And I'd maybe sprinkle KO and decision, but you might get more value by betting decision outright. Yeah. Minus 125 to bet KO and decision. So
that's how I saw the fight playing out as well. Yeah, I also saw the fight going to decision personally.
Yeah.
I just can't bet on a heavyweight fight to go decision. It's like, it seems like the most dangerous bet in sports.
To me, this might actually be one of the more like boring heavyweight fights that you'll see.
I agree.
Because it's just not a striker's delight. You're not going to see a lot of like heavy knockdowns. You might, because they might be the grappling might neutralize each other, and then they might just have to start throwing hands. It's happened before, but it just doesn't feel like that type of fight.
Yeah. No, I think Spivac's going to take him down a couple times, win some rounds in that way, control a few rounds, and then pull out the decision win. But I didn't want to bet on the decision, but this will take us to the parlay, I guess, here, where I do have a little prop bet going on here. So let's start with the Spivac bet. I have my leg 2 of my parlay here is over 0.5 takedowns landed. I think that's a killer bet. When I saw that was the line 0.5, I was like, there's no way. For Tybura, it was the line was 2.5 takedowns, keep in mind.
Okay.
So that I would probably go under there, and I would go over for Spivac on the 0.5 here. So that's a minus 190. Santos Chandler. I think you called it out before seeing my parlay, but it's going a distance.
Yeah.
That fight's got decision written all over it. And then Danny Barlow, although I do think a knockout is prevalent.
Yeah.
51.5 strikes or significant strikes landed seems easy to me. He had 95 in his last fight. So even and that fight ended by TKO as well, just in the third round. So if this fight goes at least like 1.5, 2 rounds, I think he's gonna land the over as well.
I like it. I do think there's potential that Barlow is the parlay buster here, simply
I
because
agree.
that fight could absolutely end in a knockout at any moment. Um, Santos versus Chandler feels like a lock to go the distance. I like the pick on Spivac over 5.5 takedowns, and I just think that his defensive grappling, his takedown defense, is going to be too good for Tybura to take him down more than 2.5 times. That's kind of an absurd line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. But I mean, hey man, who am I to question you? You're hot right now. You hit last week, so
We hit last week,
I had a horrible
baby.
week last week, dude. I picked Sandhagen. I picked God, who else did I pick? I picked Tony. I thought Ferguson was gonna pull it out, and he got submitted in like two
You
and a
go
half minutes.
emotional, baby. We never
Yeah,
go emotion
I
with our
know.
picks.
So
Yeah, I went 6 for 7 last week.
but the
I forget
parlay
which
hit.
one. The parlay hit, but just on
Yeah.
my straight up fight picks, I went 6 for 7 as well, which was cool to see. I think I got Mackenzie Dern wrong. I was like 50-50 on that fight, but so I went with Godinez with Loopy there, but Dern was actually the one who got my parlay to win because I had her at over 0.5 takedowns as well. Because I was like, there's no way
Right.
Mackenzie Dern is not getting a takedown, and there we go, she got it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That was a close fight though. There are people who think that actually Godinez might have won that fight. So it was
yeah.
close. But I do think Dern won. But yeah, it's good week. Good week for you.
Hell yeah, baby. Well, hopefully we can run it back 2 weeks in a
Yes,
row.
sir.
I think that's 2 weeks in a row where I've only gotten one fight wrong. So I'll
You gotta
take
start
those when I
bragging
can
about
get
it.
them. A little bit more, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bilal Muhammad was the one that ruined my streak the week before that.
You
So
ruined a lot of streaks there.
everyone I saw, a
Yeah.
lot of people I saw saying Bilal as well, but yeah, that one was an emotional one for me. See, that's what happens when you bet with your emotions because I didn't want Bilal to win,
Yeah. I
just
mean,
like you didn't want Tony Ferguson to lose.
he was an underdog, but he was like the most logical underdog to bet. You know, and
Yeah,
for some reason I couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't know.
no,
Yeah.
most people couldn't, dude. Most
Yeah.
people couldn't. But anyway, that was insider betting. We'll be back next week. Jesse, as always, I appreciate you joining me, brother.
Yep.
And yeah, see you guys next week. Peace.